Ugh. Boom. Good morning and welcome everybody to the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all cryptocurrency news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner. Today we are going to be talking about mining layer 2. Sort of. It's not quite mining. We'll get into it and explain further, obviously later in the show. We're also going to be talking about the potential consequences of Ethereum's merge for the blockchain according to CITI. We're also going to be talking about basically miners struggling through July, both Core Scientific and Argo blockchain, and some of their struggles. Then we're going to be talking about Paraguay's electricity authority requesting higher rates for crypto miners. Basically a bunch of bummer news for miners, but we have some good news on the hardware front, with basically some news on specifications for the RTX 4080 and the specifications for the new Ryzen 7000 series CPUs, hence the Ryzen in front of it. It's going to get confusing. We're going to have a Ryzen 9 7950X and we're going to have an RX 7950X. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. They're going to add the T onto the end. It'll be clear. It won't be confusing at all when we talk about it. Let's get into all of that and more after a word from today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Crypto.com. Crypto.com is my go-to centralized exchange for liquidating my crypto assets. With their Crypto.com Visa debit card, I can load up my mined Ethereum to pay for power and other operating costs. In addition to the Visa debit card, there are additional fiat options, including wire transfers, to easily receive your profits. Crypto.com also offers additional services, including trading and even staking, to earn additional revenue on your investments. Join 10 million plus users buying and selling 100 plus cryptocurrencies at true cost by using my affiliate link in the description for a $25 funding bonus. Or enter referral code SOAT at sign up for the same bonus. Remember, cryptocurrency investment comes with significant risks, so do your own research. Welcome back. It's my picture cup. All right, so first things first, let's talk about the new hardware information we have released and the Ryzen 9 7000 series specifications. Here they are. So we have the 7950X, the 7900X, the 7700X, and the 7600X specs leaked with up to 16 Zen 4 cores, a 5.7 gigahertz boost, which is absolutely insane. Simply insane. Let me correct my terminology there to stay accurate to the WCCF Tech writers. And 170 watt TDP, which is actually quite incredible if we compare that to the new 13,000 series from Intel, which is using quite a bit more power. The specifications of AMD's upcoming Ryzen 7000 Raphael desktop CPUs based on the Zen 4 core are finally revealed to us by our sources, and we can confirm that they are indeed going to be there are indeed going to be 4 SKUs at launch. The 7950X, the 7900X, the 7700X, and the 7600X. The AMD Ryzen 7000 desktop CPU lineup, codenamed Raphael, will be launching on the 15th of September, following an announcement later this month, as confirmed in our exclusive leak from the previous day. Now we have managed to get a hold of the final specifications for the 7000 desktop CPU family, which, as expected, are going to feature 4 SKUs based on the Zen 4 core architecture. Once again, those SKUs include the above mentioned. So before we get into the core specifications, we have to point out that the AMD Zen 4 architecture brings with it an 8 to 10% IPC uplift, but the majority of the performance benefit comes from the higher clock speeds and a higher TDP. That is supplemented to each chip versus the prior generation AMD as highlighted, a greater than 15% single-threaded and a greater than 35% multi-threaded and a greater than 25% performance per watt increase when comparing Zen 4 to Zen 3 cores. The CPUs will come with an optimized cache restructuring featuring double the L2 cache. That's going to be 1 megabyte versus 512 kilobytes. A shared L3 cache like the previous generation support for DDR5 memory with Expo and PCIe Gen 5 graphics cards and the M.2 SSD support. So with all of that said, let's get on with the specifications. Starting with the flagship of them all, we have the 7950X, which retains its healthy 16-core and 32-thread count from the previous two generations. The CPU will feature an impressive base frequency of 4.5 GHz and a boost clock of up to 5.7 GHz, which should make it 200 MHz faster than Intel's Alder Lake i9-12900KS, which has a boost frequency of 5.5 GHz on a single core. Of course, the 13900K we saw boosting plenty above that with the potential to overclock to above 6 gigahertz. Now, these could definitely have the potential of overclocking above 6 gigahertz. That being said, AMD is usually pretty good at keeping their boost clock pretty darn close to what the maximum limit is for their overclocks. It looks like AMD is extracting every ounce of hertz that it could within that 170 watt TDP for the Ryzen 9 chips. As for the cache, the CPU comes with 80 megabytes of that, which includes 64 megabytes of L cache from L3, sorry, there we go, and 16 megabytes from the L2 cache, 1 megabyte per core. Now, obviously, this is where, from the mining perspective, you get interested, right? That huge amount of cache. Technically getting closer, though. Intel is getting closer. They're into the 50, somewhere around, I believe it was 54 megabytes of cache. Was that correct? Somewhere around there. I'll have to go double check. So they are catching up on the Intel side. That being said, you know, from the mining perspective, the AMD CPUs are kind of still killing it. It sounds like they're going to stay ahead of the game here to me. Let me know what you guys think. We don't know the pricing or performance of the 7950X yet, but based on the clocks alone, it should be a worthy successor to the 5950X and will easily be able to topple Intel's current i9-12900K CPU. Next up, we have another AMD Ryzen 9 chip, the 7900X, which has, as the name suggests, would come equipped with 12 cores and 24 threads. The CPU comes with an even higher base clock of 4.7 GHz and a boost clock adjusted at 5.6 GHz across a single core. The CPU retains its 170 watt TDP and gets 76 megabytes of cache, 64 megabytes of L3, plus 12 megabytes of L2. The CPU will be positioned in the same ballpark as the 5900X, but with a performance that would shake the ground from below the Core i7-12700K. Moving over to the Ryzen 7 family, here we have the 7700X, an 8-core and 16-thread part. AMD positions this as the sweet spot for gamers and such. The CPU will feature a base clock of 4.5 GHz and a boost clock of 5.4 GHz. Now, in my humble opinion, that wouldn't be the sweet spot for gamers because gamers, you look, I get it. A lot of games are moving over to multi-threaded performance. I understand that. I still have a ton of games in my library that I would love to run at 240 frames per second that are going to be single-threaded heavy. And the thing is with the higher boost clocks, you're going to typically get better single-threaded performance, obviously, because of the higher boost clock. And so I don't know that necessarily this is the sweet spot for gaming. I'm a little disappointed, actually. I would have liked to see 5.7 gigahertz on the 7 series for the 7700X personally. That being said, the CPU will come with 40 megabytes of cache, which consists of 32 megabytes of L3 from a singular CCD and 8 megabytes of L2 for the Zen cores. I think that is going to be a little bit of a boost over the 5700X. We'll see in just a second, from the mining perspective, that is. Now, one interesting thing to mention is that there is so far no update by AMD on a 7800X chip. And I mean, to be honest, the 8 series in AMD has always kind of been, I mean, even from the get-go, The 1700X ended up kind of being a better buy than the 1800X. The 2700X in general ended up being a better buy than the 2800X. So this is, I think it's not necessarily a bad idea to just phase that out unless they're going to add a step in there. For example, you have the 7700X at 4.5 gigahertz base clock and the 5.4 gigahertz boost clock. Maybe you get an 8-core 16-thread part with the 7800X that has a 5.7 gigahertz boost clock, and then it starts to make sense. But in the past, they really haven't made sense because most people were just taking the 700 and overclocking it to the 800 performance, basically, and not purchasing or spending the extra money on the 800 SKU. It is likely that AMD wants to replace that part with the successor to the Ryzen 7 5800X3D with Zen 4 cores. That would be interesting with the 3D V cache, of course. We did test that. And there wasn't a huge performance uplift from it in mining that we initially expected from the cache. If that was the case, we can expect an update later this year to the CPU lineup since the Vcache parts have been confirmed for late Q4 of 2022 launch by AMD themselves. Also based on the segmentation alone, it looks like the Ryzen 7 7700X will be priced really well in the mainstream segment. Last up, we have the most budget tier, if you can call it that, but the pricing won't be reflective of that. Dang it. The Ryzen 5 7600X. This will be a 6-core and 12-thread part that features a high 4.7 GHz base clock and a 5.3 GHz single-core boost frequency. The CPU will also run at a 105-watt TDP, which is much higher than its 65-watt predecessor. Though, once again, that's the sacrifice you pay to achieve the faster clock speeds. The CPU will carry 38 megabytes of cache. That'll be 32 megabytes of L3 cache and 6 megabytes of L2 cache. So you have all of the specifications laid out here, with the top end having 80 megabytes of cache. Really specifically for mining, you're worried about that 64 megabytes of L3 cache, which, obviously is going to be double of the 32 megabytes of L3 cache. So we should get a performance uplift in some mining there over those. We have one more crucial piece of information that we're able to learn. According to the same sources, the Ryzen 7000 desktop CPUs based on the Zen 4 core architecture may only allow users to undervolt the chip itself. This would be similar to the Ryzen 7 5800X3D, which also has a voltage limit that wasn't meant to be exceeded. It looks like AMD may already be running the CPUs at high enough voltage to achieve higher clock speeds that there might be little to no room left for further overclocking. And that's what I was saying at the beginning of the article. We've heard about the 5.85 gigahertz frequency limit before, and that leaves the top parts with just 150 megahertz to work with. With that said, we have seen AMD mention extreme and enthusiast overclocking for their X670E and X670 class motherboards. That might be in relation to the DDR5 memory, but that remains to be seen. I personally believe that the overclocking such as PBO will be available, but limited to some extent on the first AM5 generation. That's all the information we got for you today as far as WCCF Tech goes on that. Just a couple notes. Like I said, I was feeling like AMD is getting very close to the maximum amount of overclocks, essentially, or basically hertz, that they're able to get to on these CPUs. And there may be no overclocking available for them, which would put them in an interesting position in the enthusiast market because Intel will still have that overclock ability. And while it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, if we're talking about the performance of your PC, if you have a part that you can buy that's going to operate at basically the top spec that it possibly can, and you get that across the board, then, at the end of the day, for the end user, that's probably the best case scenario. You're also going to have a lot less complaints, broken parts, and so on, and a consistent chip manufacturing process across the board. Sounds much better. That being said, we can't ignore that enthusiast group of people that are going to go out there and do, overclocking competitions, etc., which is just going to be more fun to do on Intel. And if you have that kind of going from that perspective, there is that weird kind of PR boost that Intel gets out of just being a part of all of the overclocking competitions. They already do pretty much sponsor most of the hardware bot competitions and so on, stuff like that. So it wouldn't be surprising if that kind of influences people to go that route in the enthusiast market just for fun. It's kind of interesting though. As far as like the daily user though, this is kind of what you want to see. It's kind of an interesting observation is all I'm saying at the end of the day. NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4080 graphics card now reportedly to feature 9,728 cores and 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. It's going to be at 420 watts, 35% faster than the 3090 Ti. Similar to the RTX 4070 specifications from yesterday, we now have specifications update for the 4080 graphics cards too. So the same leaker, Copite, had previously posted a slightly better core configuration for the RTX 4080, but it should be pointed out that NVIDIA makes several revision changes over a product's pre-launch cycle as such. The specifications change a lot, which Copite 7 Kimi is simply reporting. The card now has the same amount of cores and memory, albeit at a much lower TGP than what was reported earlier. The NVIDIA RTX 4080 is expected to utilize a cut-down 8103-300 GPU configuration with 9,728 cores or 76 SMs, enabled for a total of 84 units, whereas the previous configuration offered 80 SMs or 10,240 cores. While the full GPU comes packed with 64 megabytes of L2 cache and up to 224 ROPS, the RTX 4080 might end up with 48 megabytes of L2 cache and lower ROPS due to this cut down design. The clock speeds are not confirmed yet, but considering that TSMC 4nm process is being used, we are expecting clocks to be between 2 and 3 gigahertz range. The higher than usual clock speed bump comes from the fact that NVIDIA is making a 2-node jump, considering the Ampere GPUs with Samsung 8nm node was in reality a 10nm process node with some optimizations. NVIDIA is skipping 7nm and going straight for a 5nm node, and not even the vanilla variant, but an optimized version of it. With Pascal on the TSMC 16nm node, NVIDIA delivered a huge frequency leap, and we can expect a similar jump this time around too. As for memory specifications, the 4080 is expected to rock 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 capacities that are said to be adjusted at 21 gigabits per second speeds across a 256-bit bus. This will provide up to 672 gigabytes a second of bandwidth. This does mean that it does fall specification-wise on the memory side below the RTX 3080. And this is a problem for mining because that does mean outside of your core intensive algorithms, maybe something like Caspa, maybe something like Flux or Ravencoin. Flux and Ravencoin technically do use a little bit of memory, so they're not quite on par, but it does mean that your mining performance on Ethereum, Ergo, all that sort of stuff for sure is going to go down from the previous generation. For example, here are the specifications for the RTX 3080, and you have a bandwidth of 760 gigabytes per second. So you are losing about 100 gigabytes per second with the current specifications. You can see here 672 gigabytes a second. So you're getting a downgrade on the memory side of things. Technically, I think you're getting an increase in the actual running speed, but that will remain yet to be seen, primarily due to the fact that we'll have to see how the heat reacts and all that sort of stuff. They had a lot of trouble getting up to 21 gigabits per second. You did get there on the 3090 Ti, so it's kind of all that going down. And for the power, the total board power is said to be rated at 420 watts. If we look at the 3080, your total or your TDP was 320 watts. So more power, less memory performance, probably not going to be that good for mining. In terms of performance, the RTX 4080 is expected to offer 15,000 points in 3D Mark time SPY benchmark, which the leaker has previously stated as a conservative figure, so one can expect 35% performance uplift over the RTX 3090 Ti. As for its feature set, the 4080 graphics card will rock all modern NVIDIA feature sets, such as the latest 4th gen Tensor cores, 3rd gen ray tracing cores, the latest NVENC encoder and NVENC decoder, and support for the latest APIs. They will pack all the modern RTX features such as DLSS, Reflex, Broadcast, Resizable Bar, Freestyle, Ansel, Highlights, Shadow Play, and G-Sync support too. The graphics card should launch around Q4 of 2022, or may even slip into Q1 of 23, but it should come priced at around $699 to $799. That pricing is a little bit better, but obviously we are kind of in a position where pricing on GPUs has come down. So there you go. What are we looking at with the 4080? We are looking at worse mining performance across the board from a memory perspective. You could see it perform really, really well in some more core intensive algorithms, like we said. Specifically, I think like the ones you would look at would be pure core intensive. So Caspa, for example, would be one. Anything that's dual mineable, right? So your Alpheum, I forget all of them, but Caspa, Alpheum, that sort of thing, right? Anything that you're able to dual mine with, technically that secondary algorithm will perform better. But on the memory side, you know, you're talking about 100 watt more on the TDP, about, give or take, right? And you're talking about a reduction by 100 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth. So I'm not seeing it here as a good buy for miners. I'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions. Are you excited for the RTX 4000 series? Do you think it's going to be good for mining? I mean, you wrap in the requirement for the ATX 3.0 as well, and the possibility that you're going to have to upgrade all of your power supplies to support this because of the power spikes that are going to be going along with it, and I'm just not seeing it. Good news for the miners is that you should be able to purchase old 3000 series cards at a much cheaper price that do still perform very well on the memory side of things. And another good news, in other good news as well, of course, we have the Radeon RX 7000 series actually increasing their memory bandwidth on their top end up to 384 bits. So there will be that other possibility for a new mining card to perform well on the AMD Radeon side of things. So there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, but like we've talked about before, there is an architectural shift in the GPU market away from big buses, that sort of thing, and moving over to the L2 cache, right? So what you see when you look at the differences in specifications between, you know, even the Radeon 5000 series and the 6000 series, as you saw them move to more cache. Then they obviously created their Infinity Cache naming scheme or whatever, and that helped catch them up in traditional rasterization while reducing the size of their basically their memory bus and the speed of their memory, but then keeping up with the faster speed of the memory on NVIDIA side for traditional rasterization. NVIDIA saw that, and then now NVIDIA is kind of following suit. So we're seeing kind of this shift in design architecturally, and that does mean that your traditional mining performance will go down in most cases. That doesn't mean it will remain there, and I do want to make that very clear too, because just like the GPU market is changing all of the time, the crypto market is changing all of the time, and there are new algorithms being created every day. So there may be an algorithm, or there may be a miner, like a piece of mining software, that leverages this new architectural change in the GPU market, and then boom, all of a sudden these are good at mining for some sort of specific coin or with some sort of specific miner. mining software, and that could be the case. But as it sits right now, if we go with what we know about the mining industry, the mining software that's available and the algorithms that are available, which ones are most profitable, it doesn't look like you would want to make the shift to the 4000 series from the 3000 series. Let me go check the doorbell real quick. Apologies for the interruption. We now are back with our usual programming. Let's talk about Paraguay's electricity authority requests higher rates for crypto miners. Partial veto of mining legislation. The legislature last month approved a bill regulating crypto mining and trading in the country. Paraguay's National Electricity Administration, ANDI is what we're going to call it, presented a draft decree to President Mario Abdo's National Economic Team asking to charge a higher tariff to crypto mining companies. Now remember, this has already happened in Kazakhstan. And basically, they've made themselves completely uncompetitive. I shouldn't say completely, but for the most part, uncompetitive for cryptocurrency mining, as they are charging miners basically 5 cents a kilowatt hour now. And that is not really competitive when we're talking about those third world countries, etc. And I just don't like, this seems to be something that will continue down the line. In addition, ANDI President Felix Sosa told a local radio station he will ask Abdo to partially veto the legislature's recently passed bill regulating crypto mining and trading. At issue, according to Sosa, is a cap on the rate. Okay, hold on. Let's get through this. At issue, according to Sosa, is a cap on the rate that can be charged to miners at just 15% the industrial rate. Give me a second. Again, I'm going to lose it today. It's fine. We'll make it through today. It'll be fine, guys. We got this. We're almost getting to the fun part. Almost getting to the fun part. We get things scheduled that shouldn't be scheduled, and at times when I always tell people not to schedule things, but it is what it is. So here we go. Let's get back into this. Basically, we're still talking about the basically targeted increases in electricity costs for people that are mining cryptocurrency. And obviously, this is the second country that is discussing it. Kazakhstan's already put it in place. It's kind of a big deal, right? So at issue, according to SOSA, is a cap on the rate that can be charged to miners at just 15% above the industrial rate. So you're going to have an industrial rate that, frankly, in my humble opinion, isn't any less wasteful in general than cryptocurrency mining. Just my 2 cents. But on that point, we believe that the cap has to respond to a cost structure so that it is a viable for the installation of electric power, Sosa said, adding that he wants mining companies to pay their tariffs in advance in US dollars. That is hilarious too. He doesn't want the money in the local peso there. He's like, pay that in the US dollar, please, because our economy is going to trash. And now we're also going to make it harder for the people that could help boost our economy to actually move here. Oh my goodness. This is just madness. In the Alto Parana area, I think I said that correct. According to Sosa, illegal connections by mining companies led to losses of $410,000 in July alone, bringing losses to $2.2 million for the first 7 months of the year. In some cases, mining companies were paying between 80 and 160 times less than the corresponding amount for their real energy consumption, according to Andy. Sounds like you have not an issue of the miners using too much power, but you're not tracking it good enough, which is actually kind of hilarious because you want to charge them more, but apparently you have process issues in your governments and your utility management. So it's your fault. I'm just saying this is hilarious. This is like when people want to just like blame other people for all their problems when in fact they need to fix their own processes. If they fix that, they could probably make up that $410,000 in July alone and not be increasing the costs. It's absolutely ridiculous. Bad move, Paraguay. And everybody's going to move all of their currency into stable coins and your economy is going to continue to collapse. Good job. Core Scientific sold more Bitcoin in July than it mined. The miner still holds 1,205 Bitcoins and expects to continue to sell its mined coins to pay for expenses. Core Scientific, one of the largest Bitcoin miners by hash rate, produced 1,221, there we go, Bitcoins in July, while selling 1,975 to pay for capital and growth expenses. The miner received a total of $44 million, or $22,000 each, according to a statement published Friday. Core used the cash from the sale for capital investments related to increasing data center capacity and to pay Bitmain for 100,000 mining rigs ordered in 2021. Core said it had less than $10 million in payments remaining for the rigs, excluding shipping and customs charges. The company still holds 1,205 Bitcoins and approximately $83 million in cash on its balance sheet. During the month of July, we continued to enhance liquidity, strengthen our balance sheet, streamline our organization, and make further progress toward achieving our 2022 operating objectives, CEO Mike Levitt said in the statement. The sale comes after miner offloaded 7,202 Bitcoins in June to raise about $167 million. The company is not alone, as Bitcoin miners have started to sell their mined digital assets this year to pay for expenses during the bear market. Most recently, peer Riot Blockchain said it sold 275 Bitcoins in July, generating $5.6 million. Once again, like I do want to bring this up, the cyclical nature of Bitcoin, if you're operating at this type of level, would say that you would want to have a much higher cash balance during the bull run. And if you hit an all-time high, especially an all-time high that is more than 300% of what the previous all-time high was on Bitcoin, you should probably move out into a cash position. In fact, this will be my number one goal and priority in the next bull run, to basically say, hey, you know, at $200,000, we're pulling out, we're getting a cash position, and we're prepping for the bear market. And everybody will yell at me and say it's going to continue to go higher, and I will once again tell them it's going to go back down to $60,000. and then it'll go back down to $60,000 and everyone will be like, Bitcoin's dead. It's never coming back. You are terrible and this is just terrible and blah, blah, blah. And then we'll get all the same stuff all over again because we get it every single time. But if you are operating, my only point being really is if you're operating at this kind of level with a mining company, you should have yourself in a cash position like during the bull run. Like pretty much at this point, you should be purchasing more equipment, that sort of thing. Obviously, they are purchasing more equipment. They just didn't get themselves into a cash position before then. Core expects to continue selling, excuse me, let me get some more water. There we go. I think I asked, look, this coffee is good, but I can't talk when I drink it. Core expects to continue selling self-mined Bitcoins to pay operating expenses, fund growth, retire debt, and maintain liquidity. The miner said it has about 195,000 mining rigs with total hash rate of about 19.3 exahash per second, which it says is the largest mining capacity of any listed company in North America. Core's operation is a blend of self-mining and hosting for other miners. The shares of the mining company are about 4% on Friday and outperforming some of the mining peers and the price of Bitcoin. And obviously, if you can get a cash balance there and get more investments and order more miners, it only makes sense that you would be able to hopefully increase your stock price. Look, good job, Core. I think that they're doing probably one of the best. It does suck that there's so much selling pressure on Bitcoin, but it's not necessarily unexpected right now with the current circumstances. Crypto miner Ergo blockchain faced equipment challenges and higher costs in July, so more miners struggling. The London-based company produced 219 Bitcoin in the month, 22% more than in June. Crypto miner Ergo blockchain mined 219 Bitcoin or Bitcoin equivalents in July, 22% more than in June, even as it combated equipment problems and higher electricity costs. Power costs at its Helios facility in Texas were greater than anticipated, partly as a result of the higher natural gas price and partly due to increased demand for air conditioning during the unusually hot summer, driving up electricity prices. Hey, I'm here in Texas. I'm dealing with the same thing, just at a much smaller level, and I get it. Also, you know, I gotta bitch a little bit, okay? I've been talking to the electricity company, and I've gotten higher in the levels, and then finally I got an email, and they told me that the increase in price was due to the war in Ukraine, and I call shit on that. They told me that the natural gas prices have risen 200 to 300% because of the war in Ukraine, and I said, who's the number one producer of natural gas in the world? And they went, huh? Because they don't know. I said, Texas. Texas. It's not even the United States, it's Texas. Yes, the United States, but thanks to Texas. So what you're telling me is that you're shipping natural gas to Russia and then buying it back for 300% more? Look, I know more goes into it, but this is absolute ludicrous. It frustrates me to no hell. Or no end. There we go. All hell, no end. That's the rant. I can't, everything's going to get blamed on that. That's the problem. Next they're going to blame it on tensions between Taiwan and China, by the way. That's going to come next. While Texas and other U.S. states are generally friendly towards mining firms, there is a threat of relationships becoming strained should their presence put a burden on the electricity supply during periods of heightened demand. Several mining firms halted operations in the state last month to minimize the threat of power outages that would affect people's homes. Riot Blockchain pocketed $9.5 million in power credits as a result of the curtailing its output. Now, these large mining firms, in general, they get these benefits that us smaller, miners do not get. Even though I am technically in an industrial complex with a full LLC, etc., the power company does not give me these credits. Now, I probably need to work better on trying to figure out who will give me these credits And if there's anybody in chat that can help me out with that, that would be awesome, because I am at the point of pretty much getting to trying to figure out how to cancel my lease and move the farm to a different location. I'm still doing research on that. Ergo, which is based in London, also had failures among its S17 and T17 miners, which it said reflects wider mining industry experience. Ergo found that a large number of its 17 series machines are not operational nor suitable for repair. Ooh, that's really important that you guys note that. The S17 and T17 miners. And I'm going to tell you, I've been playing with the S19J Pro, okay? And we're going to have the review, but you guys already saw that I talked about it being too hot to run. I don't think the new generation of the Bitmain miners are as good as they look on paper. Meaning, I do not think you're going to get the returns that you expect to get off of them. I think their performance is bad. I think their build quality is shot. And I think that they were just pumping them out, and now they're dumping them on the public. And I don't think that they're necessarily a good purchase. From a purely technical, like hardware perspective, they're pretty poor machines. And that's the S19. And apparently the S17 and T17s have issues as well. With the removal of these, Ergo's hash rate in July stood at 2.23 exahash a second, largely unchanged from its 2.22 exahash a second in June, as new S19J Pros were installed. During the month, Ergo raised around $20 million from the sale of 887 Bitcoin and used some of the pay to back some of its loan from Galaxy Digital for the purchase of the Helios facility. The loan balance outstanding stood at $6.72 million as of the end of July. Shares of Ergo's traded on the London Stock Exchange fell about 3% at 822 UTC. They have fallen around 55% this year following the trend of Bitcoin's price. Now, obviously, Core Scientific, or Cores, does seem to be outperforming Ergo in this particular space. Now let's get into the big topic of today, and that is Ethereum and mining layer 2. Okay, this is going to be a fun topic. So way back, this is how it goes, right? This is how it goes every time. I have to admit, once again, I may have been wrong. Not may have been wrong. I was wrong. Sort of. Technically correct, overall wrong. See, what happened was we had an interview with MSNBC with Hut 8 Mining, who is one of the largest, if not the largest GPU miner in North America. And Hut 8 said in that interview that once ETH moved to proof of stake, they would essentially just mine something different. An example they used was Polygon, hence the title of today's show. And of course I said, well, Polygon's a layer 2 solution. It's not mineable. So that's stupid. What are they talking about? It doesn't make any sense. Until I basically saw this tweet from, I see if I can say his name. I don't know. He's a senior researcher at Scroll ZKP, which is all about those ZK rollups. And he said this. Hey, Ethereum proof of work community. If you're not sure what to do with your GPUs after the merge, but still want to be a part of the larger Ethereum community, DM me. At Scroll ZKP might need you. So I DM'd him, and we have an interview coming up on the 18th. But what is he talking about? Well, he's essentially talking about being able to solve proofs for layer 2. So when you basically have the proofs being built and then sent from layer 2s in the rollups to layer 1, there needs to be a proof there, and GPU miners could do that. Now, I don't know what the incentive structure is going to be. I don't know how that works from, profitability or from rig management, because you'll need to understand a lot about all this sort of stuff. The software won't be the same. It won't be like hooking up a miner and pointing it to a pool. There's going to be a lot going on here. But first of all, I was incorrect. Hut 8 probably knew something that I didn't know, and we should have taken that as a cue to say, hey, what's going on here? And second to that, of course, there is some light at the end of the tunnel for miners in general, or people with a bunch of mining hardware ready to move to some other sort of project post-merge. This is really interesting. I'm going to get more information on it for you guys, like I said, on the 18th. And it does look like it could be, there could be potential here for outside of just mining other cryptocurrencies and other coins. As far as the actual, merge goes, I do think we're headed into it no matter what. So yesterday we talked a little bit about the DDoS issue, for lack of a better term. That's what we will reference it as, and that Bitsby Trippin had brought up. Both Bitsby Trippin and most of the community appears to be of the same consensus that it doesn't appear the core developers at Ethereum consider this to be a big problem. So I think they will continue to move forward with the merge. And I do think it will be on or before September 19th. That being said, there could be several consequences for it. And let's get into that. This is coming from Citi and, of course, CoinDesk. Ethereum will probably become deflationary as token issuance decreases, while the burn mechanism is maintained, the bank said. The Ethereum blockchain's planned merge, an upgrade that changes it from a proof-of-work system to a more environmentally friendly proof-of-stake mechanism, will have a number of consequences, Citigroup said in a research report Thursday. These include lower energy intensity, the transition to a deflationary asset, and a potential roadmap to a more scalable future through sharding. I am getting this super chat saved for after the show. All right, there we go. These include, so the merge, the first of 5 planned upgrades for the network, may increase transaction speeds by only 10% by reducing block times, according to the report. The upgrade, however, lays the path for the surge, which is the next planned upgrade for the network and promises to bring 100,000 transactions per second capability to the blockchain, the report added. The merge means that the block time will drop to 12 seconds from 13, and that could result in a small decrease in fees and an increase in speed, the note said. Now, this is important. 12 seconds isn't unheard of on the Ethereum blockchain. This is possible if there wasn't an artificial increase in the difficulty of the network. So it's a little disingenuous. It's like basically... It literally is like coders going into the software, making it worse, and then making it better, and then saying it's better, but they're the ones that created the issue in the first place, right? It's a little ludicrous. Like, it's a little out of control. It's manipulative. It's a lie. It's simply insane. I don't have it. It's simply insane. Like, we're going to go in, we're going to artificially increase the transaction times, which will then obviously automatically increase the fees because, well, fees go up when you are trying to get priority in a block, right? That's how that happens, and blocks are going slower. So if you're trying to get your transaction in quickly, then you're going to pay for more fees, which is then going to raise the fees for everybody else. And then we're going to go ahead and reverse it with this upgrade. And we're going to pretend like the upgrade is the thing that actually solved the problem, when in fact we created the problem. It's stupid. Citi says switching from proof of work will reduce overall issuance of Ether by 4.2% a year, and with ETH eventually becoming deflationary. This may improve the case for the token as a store of value. The move to proof of stake turns ETH into a yield-bearing asset with cash flows, the bank said, which may be interpreted as a form of revenue for the network. Having potential cash flows would allow the use of a range of valuation methods that aren't available for the blockchain now, the bank added. Because Ethereum will be both yield-bearing and deflationary, it is less likely to be the blockchain with the highest throughput. Given its, quote, enhanced store of value properties, end quote, it is more likely to be where a growing amount of total value locked, or TVL for short, is secured and transacted, the note said. Who does that benefit? So that's the next thing that we have to talk about. We have this major shift that's coming within Ethereum, and it's not just about the merge and the removal of proof of work, but this deflationary perspective on it. And if you guys ever pay attention to, I know a lot of people don't like Musk in the crypto space, but if you pay attention to him when he's talked about Dogecoin, one of the things that he points out is that Dogecoin has, you know, that high transaction throughput. And in addition to that, it has no supply cap, which makes it really good for a transaction currency. And Ethereum at the end of the day is supposed to be facilitating transactions quickly because in my opinion, it's supposed to be, because it's all about transacting within this Web3 space. And you're making it now closer to, like, let's say Bitcoin, except instead of having a supply cap, you're just basically burning a bunch of it. So you're making it deflationary by pulling the currency out of the ecosystem. And it incentivizes people in the wrong way, right? It doesn't incentivize people to actually utilize it. It incentivizes people to hold it. Post-merge, ETH could be viewed as a relatively energy-efficient, environmentally friendly crypto asset, as the energy expenditure is expected to decrease by 99.95%, the note added. Except it sounds like layer 2 rollups might be utilizing GPUs. However, my understanding of it, at least from the Twitter comments, is that, you know, solving proofs for ZK rollups is not as wasteful as mining. We'll definitely be asking questions about that when we get there. Let's get into mining profitability for the day right after a word from today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Crypto.com. Crypto.com is my go-to centralized exchange for liquidating my crypto assets. With their Crypto.com Visa debit card, I can load up my mined Ethereum to pay for power and other operating costs. In addition to the Visa debit card, there are additional fiat options, including wire transfers, to easily receive your profits. Crypto.com also offers additional services, including trading and even staking, to earn additional revenue on your investments. Join 10 million plus users buying and selling 100 plus cryptocurrencies at true cost by using my affiliate link in the description for a $25 funding bonus. Or enter referral code SOAT at sign up for the same bonus. Remember, cryptocurrency investment comes with significant risks, so do your own research. And welcome back, everybody. So mining profitability for the day, probably going to be right around $100 as we've been expecting. And ta-da, right around $100. Hey, look, this is when I was working on my farm yesterday. Look at that. Bloop, bloop, bloop. 3.99 gigahash. And then back to 4.52. We're at 4.98 gigahash a second real time with an average of 4.36 gigahash a second. I do need to check. Those are all of my rigs. Nobody added any rigs on. We are killing it today. Is it cool outside? Are we getting the cold front going? Is there a cold front? We're almost at 5 gigahash on 11 rigs. What's going on today? Must have done some good work at the farm yesterday. That's what I'm talking about. Average over the 24 hours, 4.36 gigahash a second. We're estimated to do $109 US for the next 24 hours, which would be 0.066 ETH. Now, we are mining some Erg as well. Some Erg. Now, I was solo mining Erg yesterday on my node, and then I just tanked my entire server infrastructure and said, fuck it, and went to bed. That's pretty much what happened. Excuse my language, but that was exactly how it happened. Just went, fuck it, and went to bed. Because it was, I had log files on the USB install of ESXi. It was crashing it. I tried to bounce it. It didn't come back. I was not going to drive out to the farm. Everything was working, so I just threw these back on GetBlock for now, and it is in the smart pool for getting me some of that Ergo pad. Payments for the last 24 hours, 6 Erg, because we were, like I said, until like 10 o'clock last night, we were essentially solo mining Ergo. So there you go. That's the explanation behind that. Let's check what to mine on the RTX 3090. We have Ethereum at 119 megahash a second, and we've corrected the ProgPow algorithms, including KPow and FearoPow, to 60 megahash a second, and ZIL hash to 110 solutions a second. And this is at 10 cents a kilowatt hour. Ravencoin comes in first at $3.20 a day before power and $2.41 a day after power. Ethereum's at $2.98 a day before power, and $2.21 a day after power. Gemlink has popped up here, but I would be extremely cautious surrounding it as to why. It's at $2.72 in revenue and at $2.03 a day after power. Cero's back up here at $2.70 a day in revenue and $1.90 a day after power. Neox has dropped down quite significantly to $2.67 a day in revenue and $1.88 a day after power. Fero Proof of Work at $2.66 a day in revenue and $1.86 a day after power. Conflux at $2.48 a day in revenue and $1.69 a day after power. And Ethereum Classic at $2.40 a day in revenue and $1.63 a day after power. Flux is a little bit down on the list at $2.27 a day in revenue and $1.58 a day after power. And let's look at this. It looks like it is more profitable to mine it directly right now. So there's that. In fact, I don't even see ZIL hash, nice hash on the list at all today. Ergo is at $1.87 a day in revenue and $1.24 a day after power. And ETH has made its way back up the charts, surprisingly, to $1.80 a day in revenue. And now $1 a day in profit after power, which is actually quite surprising. But I have seen some updates from them here recently, so maybe that's part of it. Let's take a look at any changes in hash rates on these networks. We got Bitcoin at 231 exahash a second, up a little bit. And we can finally see that slight increase in difficulty starting to show on the chart. So it is up in difficulty. First difficulty tick up in since May. So we are getting a difficulty tick up on Bitcoin. First one since May. That's significant. That does mean, good things at the end of the day. Ethereum is at 933 terahash a second. No real changes. Ethereum Classic has actually gone up about a terahash a second. It's at 32 terahash a second. Way over a 7-day consistency at this hash rate. Thanks to, of course, that earlier pump that we had. It's a little down, about 8 to 9% down right now. This is good news. Like we've talked about before, or in yesterday's show, Ethereum Classic, being able to maintain this hash rate and this difficulty rate does mean it has more longevity than I think people have anticipated from it. There are still a lot of questions surrounding that, though, of course. Take a look at Ravencoin. 2.46 terahash a second. No real changes. Neoxa at 121 gigahash a second. And Flux 1.13 mega solutions a second. Let's check Gemlink to be careful here so you guys are aware if they're starting to get pumps up. Yeah, there's a little bit. Maybe from about 15 kilosolutions a second to 21 kilosolutions a second. So be careful with Gemlink. Just a little PSA there. And Ergo at 9.66 terahash a second. It is down about 0.4 terahash a second, but it's up in price. It's green, only by 0.64%, but it is up in price. And it is still over $2 right now, which is cool. Let's take a look at mining profitability on pools for Ethereum. Last 90 days, ZET in first, Ethermine in second, Crazy Pool in third. Last 60 days, we have ZET in first, Ethermine in second, F2 Pool in third. Last 30 days, we have Nano Pool in first, Mining Pool Hub in second, F2 Pool in third. Last 21 days, we have ZET in first, Nano Pool in second, Mining Pool Hub in third. Last 14 days, we have ZET in first, Nanopool in second, Mining Pool Hub in third. Last 7 days, we have Nanopool in first, ZET in second, Hive on Pool in third. Last 3 days, we have ZET in first, Nanopool in second, F2 Pool in third. And for the last day, we have ZET in first, Nanopool in second, and Flex Pool in third. ASIC mining profitability, still the E9 at the top. I think Red Panda's getting one, possibly. So I don't have one on the way, unfortunately, for testing, but it is what it is. The Antminer L7 at $21.91 a day and the KD6 at $21.62 a day. We have the KD5, and that's actually pretty impressive. The KD6 is back over $20 a day. That's good. Good news. KD5 at $13.47 a day. Scrolling down, we have the S19 Pro at $5.40 a day. It does look like it's most profitable on Digibyte still at this time. Stretch. Let's get into questions and answers. We got about 6 minutes. Remember, super chats are never required. Always appreciate first to be answered because they're the easiest to read. Tagging at Son of a Tech at the beginning of your message will turn the message orange, making it easier to read. Second most easy to read. If you would like to support the channel from an algorithm perspective, super stickers apparently are the #1 algo booster. You can make it as cheap as you want. That is my understanding according to the YouTube algo gods. If you would like to support the channel the most directly, that takes the least cut from me, you can check out sonofatech.locals.com. And over there, we also have exclusive giveaways as well as other exclusive content. So you can definitely head over there. We also stream live at night on twitch.tv/blindrun. We'll be streaming again tomorrow night around 6 p.m. Central Time. Of course, today we're taking the day off to do some family time because I haven't done any family time this week yet. So let's get into questions and answers. We did have a $5 super chat earlier. I wanted to get it covered. The question was, have you seen the vid of the dude removing all the fans on the S19 and replacing it with a shroud and inline fans? If so, thoughts? No, I have not seen that. That would definitely be one that I'd want to probably check out and see if that can reduce the temperatures. Right now, we moved the ASIC miner into an AC controlled environment, and that is keeping, basically we're able to keep that thing now at like 100 terahash a second, but we have to keep it at basically 24 degrees Celsius in that room. So it's stupid, right? Like we're wasting one AC unit. I have basically one of those like in-wall AC units, like one you would see at a hotel, in a 150 square foot room, cooling one ASIC S19J Pro. And that is even still running relatively hot, to be completely honest. So I'm not a big fan of them. Wasted Trash Panda, thanks for the $5 super chat, says, fun fact, the U.S. government has done more to take away its citizens' rights than any foreign entity. Also, cheddar cheese in the 3060 Ti is superior. What are you trying to do to my algorithm? It's okay. I prefer pie made it up with the 99-cent super chat sticker. So we're all good. All right. Raptor Node says, at Son of a Tech, let me get this straight. NG that is harvested from Texas is being sold at a 300% markup since February. Well, 200 to 300%. And that is what I am being told by the people that are trying to pillage me and destroy the business. Raptor Nodes also says, at Son of a Tech, and of course the energy company is okay with that. Their profits are way higher due to the increase because they can sell it for 300% more. Do I understand this right? Well, here's the thing. A lot of energy companies are non-profit. That's another thing I would call BS on, if that makes sense. Their non-profit status is just to get them out of taxes. That's what it sure feels like. Space Cadet says, that Son of a Tech, do you know why KDA hash rate is dropping? I do not know why KDA hash rate is dropping. My assumption would be somebody with a bunch of the ASIC miners is trying to sell them off. Potentially. That's all I would have for you there. XDX says, ask Summit Tech, how many cycles of crypto have you been in? This is my second one. Technically kind of third, but really second one. I count it as my second one. Is that fair? Wasted Trash Pandas, thanks for the $1.99 super sticker to boost that algorithm. Good sir. Bow, 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 bow. Down, 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 down. Chun Peng says, "That son of a tech, thank you for including the FluxOS release yesterday so I don't get kicked out of line on my node because of all the failed benchmarks." I try to keep up with as much news as possible. I wake up in the morning every day, Monday through Friday. I usually, do the necessary getting ready for the day stuff. Sometimes I forget to brush my teeth, sometimes I forget to shower. And then I sit down on my computer and I go through every single coin's Discord and their announcements channels. Then I go through every single GitHub, and I just have every single GitHub for every single mining software and every single coin. And I pull all of those up and I look for any updates. And then I hit WCCF Tech for all the tech news. Then I hit the coin, coin desk and all of that. And then I hit my Twitter because sometimes I retweet stuff that I'm like, I'll talk about this tomorrow. So I'm just constantly trying to find the news, and then you guys help me out as well when you post stuff. So as long as we all work together, we can get the news out to everybody, right? Raven Rebels, thanks for the 20 SEK super sticker. Hell yeah. Village says, "Ask Simon Tech, quiet day today." Not real. I mean, I think we had a pretty crazy show. I think that there's a lot of information coming out right now. Big notes. First difficulty increase on the Bitcoin network since May. Basically the leak that miners will be able to shift their GPUs over to do proofs on L2 solutions for ZK rollups. All pretty big stuff, I think. I think if you didn't watch today's show, you'll definitely want to come back and watch it because I think all of this stuff is extremely relevant. Worm says, "That Sign of a Tech, let me design some merch for you." I have some merch down there, but you can definitely do that. You can always hit me up on Twitter, or of course, if you have Rocket Chat, you can hit me up on there. Just let me know. I'm down. Nahul Angelone, sorry if I botched that name, says, or botched your name there, says, "At Son of a Tech, do you recommend Easel Pool for ETH?" Easel Pool is good if you want to do Zilliqa along with ETH. Other than that, I'd probably just leave it alone. Village BC says, "At Son of a Tech, you don't use an RSS feed aggregator to bring the sources together." For the website stuff, yes. For the Discord stuff, that's a little bit more difficult, right? So, no. You got to kind of like go through all of that. For the GitHub, for the GitHub, I pull all that information. You still have to read it all, right? And then for like the website stuff, CoinDesk, etc., yes. For anything that's in Discord, I just have to go click through the channels and check for announcements. Because a lot of stuff pops up on there, like you've probably seen where I've just literally screen capped something and dragged it into the browser before. Worm says, "If you need an editor, let me know." I have a guy that does clipping. I do need somebody to clip the Twitch channel if you're interested in doing that for a different channel. Paul says, "Ask Simon Tech, 5 GB DAG in a couple weeks on Ethereum." There you go. Diego says, "Ask Simon Tech, are you buying new GPUs or are you going to wait for the merger the day it is to buy used GPUs?" I'll probably wait until the 4000 series comes out. But in general, I have about... I really don't have a lot of amps left. I probably have about 20 amps left. Is it right now? Raven Rebel says, do you pay for your energy by the hour? In Sweden, electricity is super cheap at night. Yeah, we pay by the kilowatt hour. Wadada says, that's kind of a tech. The guy lives in Florida and was even able to overclock it, even being in the hot warehouse. Not to mention it was way quieter. Nice. I'll definitely have to check it out. Luke Troyer says, that's kind of a tech. Miners love when supply goes down, but demand goes up so they can sell coins for more. They hate evil energy companies when supply goes down and demand goes up. Kind of a double standard. Okay, so let's talk about that. It all depends on if you have a monopoly on the situation. The difference with mining, or mining in general, is that's market driven, right? We would like to think that the energy companies are market driven, but it doesn't appear to be necessarily that's the case all of the time. So it depends on what kind of industry you're talking about there, because we're not talking about, you know, the market saying necessarily, well, okay. So first of all, the markets in a mining situation, when you don't have any control over that. The market within an energy situation, they have some control over that. And that is kind of where the difference would go there. But of course, if you are trying to perform within your industry based off of another industry, you are going to have issues when that industry changes it, especially in relation to your contract. Okay. So for my case in particular, to give you an idea, I have a contract that I pay a certain amount for a kilowatt hour. Okay. What they have done is they can't up my kilowatt hour, so they've added on a second fee with no actual relation to a given price of an asset. So while they claim, okay, so they claim that it's due to market pricing, right? Demand, supply, and demand. But because they can't actually up my rate, they don't give me a market price, okay? So if they came to me and they said, okay, here's your market price. The market price is going up for A, B, and C reasons. When we renew the contract, the market price will go up. Then I have the ability to shift and change what I do. It's no different than, it's no different than if ETH goes up in price, but instead of you being able to make the decision to pay the fees for ETH, right? You now have zero decision on whether or not you can pay those fees on ETH. They just force you to pay the fees on ETH. Miners aren't forcing people to pay the fees on ETH without prior consent. Nicholas Kane says, at Savatech, I am solo mining ETC with 2 miners and managing to hit a block every 24 to 48 hours with 3.2 gigahash. Is it possible to run your own ETC node to increase personal luck? Yes, it is possible. I've been having issues with mine. I did a Docker version of Besu Hyperledger, and that's the only node that I haven't been able to get up and running yet. So it's had a lot of issues. I may rebuild the VM completely. I am building out 2 new servers, so hopefully those will help. The Kielbasa says, at Samatech, are you able to switch on the fly smart pools on GetBlock? I think I lost some neta switching to Ergo Pad. That's an interesting question. I'd have to ask GetBlock on what happens with that. Christian R says, at Samatech, why do current miners not reject ASICs like before? I thought decentralization was core principle of cryptocurrency. There are so many YouTubers pushing ASICs. So you're saying, okay. So you're saying why do current miners not reject ASICs like before? I think that's interesting because it's a perspective thing, right? So first of all, so YouTubers are not miners, or all YouTubers are not miners. All mining YouTubers do not represent all of the mining community. All right, so you'd have to put a distinction in between there. Now, let's talk about like ASICs to a certain extent versus GPU mining and decentralization, right? So obviously the more consumer hardware that is being able to be used to validate the market or validate the blocks on the chain is going to be better. Meaning like GPUs and CPUs that are available to the general public are going to be preferred for decentralization. That being said, ASICs aren't necessarily the worst, right? So you do have more and more companies coming in to produce ASICs. So you have competition in the market. The biggest issue with ASICs early on was that you had one company, Bitmain, that made all of the ASICs, meaning you were centralized with one manufacturing company. So it was a much larger issue, in my humble opinion, let's say previous bull run when it was only Bitmain making the ASICs, compared to now where you have Bitmain, Gold Shell, WhatsMiner, a whole bunch of new entries into the market. Okay, so now you have more availability of the product. And because of the bear market, you now have availability of the product to the general consumer. So when the pushback happens in a bull run, right, it's usually because those products are going to basically large firms only. And so now when you get the shift into the bear market, the general public, like you and me, so on, we start to have access to these ASIC miners. So then you can further decentralization further decentralize if you have more people purchasing ASIC miners. So that could be some of the reasoning, right? And right now I'm just kind of spitballing like off the top of my head why these things would happen. The other thing, as far as why YouTubers are pushing those, is because YouTubers are in a bear market and they're trying to make money. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like we talk about when we get BT miners and we have the promo code in the bottom, I'll get a kickback for sales there. I'll get a kickback for sales from Coastal Crypto Mining and so on. So it's no different than trying to run any other business. You're looking for avenues to generate revenue, right? So just like if you're a miner and you're looking for avenues to generate more revenue in the bear market, so you're dipping into staking, or you're dipping into liquidity pools, or you're starting to invest in ASIC miners, which is something that a lot of people start doing now too. It's really the same situation over and over again as far as all that goes. And the problem is now too that we're seeing, I think in general with the GPU market, is it's not as decentralized as we thought it was. And the reason I say that is because, as we've heard and seen, NVIDIA has been selling to large miners special GPUs that outperform everybody else's GPUs on the secondary market, right? Or on the back end market. So I'm actually not even sure anymore that GPUs, I think the day of decentralization thanks to consumer products on the GPU market is dwindling away as these sort of like back-end manufacturing kind of direct sale to large firms go into play. So I think as a small miner, you are just looking to generate the revenue that you need to generate to continue to function and stay alive. These are all kind of the ideas that run around though in my head when we're talking about it. Beatmaster says, ask Tech, what are your kilowatt hour costs? Mine is 8 cents currently. Well, my contract is 5.5 cents a kilowatt hour in the winter and 6.5 cents a kilowatt hour in the summer. But with these added fees, it is up an additional 7.5 cents a kilowatt hour. That's going to wrap it up for today. I just looked at the time. I am already over. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Be sure to hit the like, comment, subscribe, and notification bell down below. I think there's a ton of good questions today. So thanks everybody for the good questions and for making me think. And hopefully you learned something today in the show as well. And I'll see you next Tuesday.